यस्त्यक्त्वा रूपमाद्यं प्रभवते जगतः अनेकधा अनुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिः विषमविषधरः अनेकवक्त्रः सुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिः भुजगपरिकरः प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः सवो व्यात् सितविमलतनुः योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रभवं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। पातञ्जलमहाभाष्य चरकप्रतिसंस्कृतैः मनोवाक्कायदोषाणां हर्त्रे हि पतये नमः। भाष्यकृत्सूत्रकृच्चापि निर्मलन्तं सुरूपिणं ध्यातारं श्रीपतेर्नित्यं पतञ्जलिं नमाम्यहम्। योगाङ्गानुष्ठानात् अशुद्धीक्षये ज्ञानदीप्तिः अविवेकख्यातेः यम नियम आसन प्राणायाम प्रत्याहार धारणा ध्यान समाधयः अष्टौ अंगानि। So my dear friends, greetings. We are in the second chapter of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and Patanjali has presented in this section of the sutras the model of how we are overcoming the challenges that we have in order to come out of what is called suffering, all kinds of suffering, whether it is physiological suffering or emotional suffering or even spiritual suffering. And Patanjali gives us a 4-step model that he has elaborated: Heyam, Hetu, Hanam and Upayam. And in the last sutra, we concluded about the last 2 sutras, we concluded with this model of what is the Upayam, that is, what is the means to reach finally this goal of removing ourselves from suffering. And Patanjali talks about this as a concept called Viveka. Viveka Jnanam, Viveka Khyatihi Aviplava Hana Upayaha. The means is what is called Viveka. Now, Patanjali's 2nd chapter is coming to a very important milestone, the conclusion of the model and the beginning of a very important concept that is called Aṣṭāṅga-yoga. So, what Patanjali says is Viveka is not like something that you can go buy in a shop. Upayam means a tool, a means. So it's not like you want to buy a hammer, you go to a shop, hardware shop, you buy it. You want a car, you go to a car shop, you buy it. Upaya here in this context called Viveka is something that you will acquire. It's not something that you will get by going to a place and purchasing it. So what Patanjali says now is the concept of Viveka, especially what is called Aviplava Viveka. It means unwavering clarity is only a possibility when certain practices are put in our life. Then we become like a magnet for Viveka. It's almost like when you are doing these kind of practices, the energy changes. And remember, energy is magnetic. So when the energy changes, you become like a magnet, you draw what you are meant to draw. So Viveka will be drawn to you when you change your energy through certain set of practices, and that is what he is going to present now through the concept called Aṣṭāṅga-yoga. It's a very significant presentation because in modern era we approach yoga through physical practices, and that's unfortunately because we are looking at yoga through modern science or Western medicine or things like that, which is a very flawed approach, because when the time yogis were presenting yoga 2500 years ago, modern medicine did not exist. So the yogis were not looking at it from the way many people look at it now. The yogis looked at it very differently. A very important part of this is what is called the concept of Sarvangasana, as Acarya Krishnamacharya calls it. This is the concept of what is called a holistic practice. That's why Patanjali presents the different tools: Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyanam, Samadhi, of which the first 5 are called as Bahiranga Sadhana, external practices, and the last 3 are called Antaranga Sadhana, that is internal practices. And when you look at all these collection of practices, what is called Yama and Niyama, it's the foundation, our attitudes towards ourselves and our society in which we are living. It does not mean we have to do what our society wants us to do. That's the flawed meaning that we have today. We try to satisfy society, but unfortunately society will never be satisfied with what we do. We have to do what is appropriate, not necessarily what satisfies other people. So certain guidelines are given with what is called Yama and Niyama, certain disciplines which we are inculcating as daily habits, as attitudes towards ourselves and others. And all this Patanjali will explore. Now without that, the other limbs will not gain strength. And so once Yama and Niyama become the platform, we have other tools like Asana, which is the concept of moving energy to certain parts of the body through taking certain positions with breathing, with conscious breathing. Then comes pranayama, regulation of prana through conscious breathing, directed in certain way, combined with mantras, combined with certain practices like mudras and bandhas. Pranayama is not just putting one hand like this, one hand like this for half a second. We have to engage in long retention of breaths, long extension of breaths, etc. Then comes what is called pratyahara, which is restraint or control of senses. This is also very important for many reasons. One is, many times during practice there are distractions. I always say that I see that many people, they go to the beach and practice, and in the morning the beach, when the people practice, there are a lot of distractions. There's the sunrise as a distraction. There are other children playing around, that is a distraction. There are people who are jogging, cycling, etc. That is a distraction. And most importantly, there are people who in the morning who come with tea and biscuits and snacks that are even more distraction. Then we start, oh, I'll have a chai, then do practice. Then we start to have a chai. The chai wala will give you one more biscuit, sir. He will give you one biscuit. One biscuit is so delicious, it will take another biscuit. But then the chai is empty before the biscuit is empty, so you want another chai so that you can dip the biscuit in the chai. So eventually you will have about 3 chais and about 7 biscuits, and then you cannot practice anymore. So that's why we need some kind of discipline of the senses in order to practice. But there's another reason as well that Patanjali is talking about pratyahara, because as we engage in spiritual practices, there is siddhis that will develop. You will become very sensitive, which means you will start seeing things, you will start observing things, you will smell things differently, you will see things differently, you will hear differently, you will develop empathy, and as you go further, you may develop other skills which are extraordinary. Now, part of the problem with the human being is that these siddhis, these skills that we are developing, that itself become a distraction. We want to show off our possibilities. Hey, I can see inside you. Hey, I can know what is your problem. We become deluded by this and we get distracted. It's not bad that these potentials are coming, because it is why we have these potentials. This is what is called prosperity. We have to prosper in our potential. Prosperity is not money. When you say a field is prosperous, the field is not giving money. It's giving the fruits or vegetables that it's supposed to give. The plant is very prosperous in its nature. So when we practice yoga in a holistic way, certain siddhis will start coming that are consistent with our potential. So these potentials will start coming, we will start to prosper. But we must not get lost in this prosperity. That's why we are reminded again and again in the Vedic tradition of the 2 deities, what is called Hri and Shri. There is a mantra, Om Hreem Shreem Lakshmi Bhyo Namaha. Hri and Shri are the 2 deities, the goddesses, the feminine energy, which is the energy of potential. So Shri is, nowadays we call goddess of wealth. It's a very bad word because in the old days wealth was not measured by money, wealth was measured by knowledge and potential. So if you thrived in your potential, that is what represents prosperity. You are a prosperous person. But prosperity should not lead to ego or distraction. That's why Hri is modesty. You have to be humble. You must not be arrogant. Because the prosperity can make you arrogant. Just look at all the prosperous nations today. They're very arrogant. That's why they collapse. And the fascinating thing about this mantra is the order in which they have talked about. Hrim, Shrim, Lakshmi, Bhyo Namaha. The first one is not prosperity, the first one is humility or modesty. Because that is the platform for prosperity. So we must never lose our humility or modesty when there is prosperity happening. So that's why Pratyahara is very important, because all our potential will be asking us to become very tempting, the ego will start getting nourished. We must have the opposite. Yesterday, I read one very fascinating article about one very famous Hong Kong actor who is a Buddhist by nature. He was called Chow Yun-fat. He is very famous because he came in this movie called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And he's giving away, a very wealthy man, but he lives only on about $800 per month as his regular income. He's not worried about luxurious life. But what's very fascinating is he wants to donate all his wealth to charity. He says, I'm not owner of this money, I'm only a safekeeper of this money, so I just want to donate. Now that's humility. The wealth is not taking away your fundamental values. That's why Pratyahara is very important, because yoga will give you certain siddhis and certain powers. Because if that is not giving you certain powers, it's useless. You want to come into your power. That's what is called empowerment. You're not coming into your weakness. That's not why we are doing yoga practices. Yoga practices we are doing to come into our power. All spiritual practices are for that. You want to come into your power. You don't want to come into your weaknesses or flaws. For that we have enough systems like medicine, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, which is keeping us in our darkness, and we keep continuing to pay these people. And then we become even more dark. All spiritual practices, whether it's organized religion or non-organized religion, or practices like martial arts, practices like yoga, practices like Ayurveda, Siddha, etc., and many other traditional practices in different countries, they are meant for our empowerment. That means you are coming into your power. It's a very delicate line, because you cannot not be in your power. At the same time, you cannot become arrogant with your power. You have to walk that delicate line. That's why Pratyahara is so essential, not only because of distractions like simple tea and biscuits, but more importantly, with your own power, because your own power can be very toxic. And when you are not able to resist your own power and transcend it, you will not be fit for the internal practices that is called dharana, dhyanam and samadhi. That's why pratyahara and pranayama are very, very important. And that's why Patanjali many times talks about this concept again and again. Even in the 3rd and the 4th chapters, he is talking about it. There's a very fascinating sutra in the later chapters. 3rd chapter, Sthānyupanimantrane sangasmaya karanam punaranishta prasangat. As you develop more and more power, more and more skills, you will be invited in different places to do this and to do that, to give you this position and to give you that position. That is what is called sthana nimantranam. Sthana means like a position or a post. Oh sir, come and be president of World Yoga Federation. Oh, come and be this head of this association. Come and do this and come and do that. And you will get what is called a nimantrana. Nimantrana means an invitation that cannot be refused. An invitation that cannot be refused. It's like in the movie Godfather, an offer you cannot reject. The same way, Nimantrana. For example, our own ancestor, Swami Vedanta Deshika, who lived in the 12th, 13th centuries, he had one such Nimantrana. Very fascinating story. As he was evolving in his own powers and his own spiritual path, his classmate, who was very young, childhood friend, was working for the king of Kanchipuram. And his classmate was not as great a scholar or as great a poet or a spiritual person as Vedanta Deshika, but he had a job with the king. So he was more wealthy. And his classmate felt compassion for Deshika because Vedanta Deshika was very poor. He was very, very poor. So he convinces the king, says, "Sir, please give this man a job as the royal poet because he is the best poet living in our times now. You will have extraordinary value with him as the royal poet. He's a great spiritual person. You will be guided well by him. Please invite him." So the king sends a nimantrana, an order, saying, "Sri Deshika, please come and work in the court as the royal poet." This is what is called nimantrana. It's not like, "Do you want to work as a royal poet?" No, it's not like a request. "Oh, do you want?" It's like a nimantrana. Come. There is no other answer. So that's where Deshika looks at this as a distraction. And he writes back to the king with a beautiful poem called Vairagya Panchakam. He says, "King, sorry, I already employed, I cannot work for two bosses. Devam sevitumeva nischinumaham yosau dayalu pura." He says, "Dear king, I'm already working for another boss, Sriman Narayana. I cannot work for you. Sorry, Narayana booked me first." So this is what is called Vairagyam, which is so important, Pratyahara, that you are not even distracted by the opportunity of a very important position, a very important place, a position of power, because power can be very seductive and very dangerous. That's why Pratyahara is the boundary. For deeper practices, if you cannot have the concept of Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyanam and Samadhi cannot be possible. Dharana, Dhyanam and Samadhi are what is called Antaranga Sadhana, and they are part of what is called the meditative process, where Dharana is a state of connection, a state of concentration or a connection. Dhyanam is a deeper link, a link that is very natural, that is established not only at a conscious structure but an unconscious structure. And Samadhi is what we can call as an absorption or integration with the object of focus, that we cannot be distracted by anything else. We are in another planet. We go into the planet of the object of focus. We are somehow not, as if we are not in this planet. So this is what is called Aṣṭāṅga-yoga, and what Patanjali says is, unless you put into practice all of these limbs, Viveka is not going to come closer to you. And that's why in modern era, many of us in yoga field, we suffer even more because we are guided by exercise instructors. We are not guided by yoga teachers. Most of the yoga teachers, in the name of yoga, they are only users of yoga. They are not really yogis. They use the word yoga for marketing, for business, because they want to say that they are yogis and attract certain people who are naive, and the naive people will get attracted to that. But they are not really giving solutions, because they are not teaching the holistic nature of yoga, the concept of Ashtanga-yoga that Patanjali has elaborated, without which we cannot go anywhere near this concept of Viveka. It's almost like the Ashtanga-yoga is like the customs and border control which you have to cross in order for you to go to the other side to receive Viveka. You cannot say, I don't want Aṣṭāṅga-yoga, but I want to be inside. For such kind of diplomatic passports, you have to be either a Videha or a Prakriti Laya, but we are not that. We are normal human beings. Patanjali talks about these extraordinary beings called Videhas and Prakriti Layas in the first chapter. Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam. Those two are exceptions. They don't need Ashtanga Yoga, but all of us, we are called Shraddha Pratyayas. They are Bhava Pratyayas, we are Shraddha Pratyayas. We need to put practice, we cannot escape. So, for such a purpose, the Ashtanga Yoga becomes a fundamental platform, and we must never forget that. And Patanjali will introduce what is each anga of the Ashtanga Yoga in the later sutras, and there will be much more clarity on that. Now we come back to the earlier sutra 28, where Patanjali talks about the sutra Yoganga Anushthānāt Ashuddhikshayet Jnanadiptihi Aviveka Kyatehe. 3 parts. Yoga Anga Anushthānāt. You have to have the Anusthana of yoga. It's not that you practice one limb for a short term. You are practicing all the limbs for a long term. That is what is the meaning Anushtanam. Yoga Anga Anushtanam. Anushtana means you follow it for a long period of you are remaining with the practice for a long period. It doesn't mean you have to do the same practice. It means you have to have an integrated practice of all the 8 limbs for a long time. And what is very fascinating about this is the word Anushtana. It's a very challenging word for modern people. Modern people, they don't want to follow the teachings. The word Anushtana means to follow, not self-learn or self-do. Many of us, we want to do what we want to do, but we will not necessarily be able to choose what is right for us. Just take a simple example. If we are allowed to eat what we want to eat, what will we eat usually? We will eat what we like. We won't eat what is healthy. We will eat what we like. Now, if you keep eating what you like, you will eventually become sick, because we will not eat the variety of food that is needed to remain healthy. The same way, if we are asked to do what we want to do, we'll do what we like, not necessarily what is appropriate. Now, this concept is very fascinating. This is even extending into certain things like relationship. Many of the people today, we want to be with somebody we like, not necessarily somebody who is appropriate for us. That's why in the old days, they were not really being in relationship with somebody they liked. They were in a relationship with somebody who is appropriate, so that there could be support. What is missing in one will be nourished by the other. What is missing in the other will be nourished by the other. So in many domains, we have become a society where we think if we do what we like, we are independent, we are free. But that is the trap of materialism. So what Patanjali is saying, Anushtana has a double meaning. The word Anushtana means you need to follow a teacher who has followed a teacher. Who has followed a teacher? Who has followed a teacher? There is a parampara behind. We are very fortunate in the Viniyoga tradition that our teaching tradition goes back all the way, at least directly to Natha Muni, who is 1200 years old, and indirectly to Nammalvar, who is about 3000 years old. So we have a direct lineage. We are very fortunate. Not many other yoga traditions have a lineage that long. Many of them are self-appointed yogis or self-appointed gurus who don't even have a guru. And that's part of the trap in the modern era. We need to follow a parampara, That's the word Anushtana, Patanjali's subtle clue, because many teachings are given power through certain subtle practices that are handed down from one generation to the other. For example, we have to use mantra in asana and pranayama as part of yoga practices. Samantraka. Patanjali talks about this in the first chapter. But when a mantra is taught, it's not that you just take one mantra and just do, I like this mantra, I'll do Gayatri mantra, I like that mantra, I'll do this mantra. You are given an appropriate mantra to wake up your potential, but when the teacher is initiating you into that, and when you are reciting that, you don't only have the power of your own recitation, you have the power of the teacher's recitation in the past. That teacher's recitation, the teacher of the teacher's recitation, the teacher of the teacher of the teacher's recitation. So the power of the parampara is behind you. So you gain that power. That's why it's very easy for us to, for those in the know, to know very easily who is reciting from a parampara and who is not reciting from a parampara. It's very simple to see. But many common people don't know this, that's why they get deluded. Somebody say, come, I'll teach you. Somebody other says, come, I'll teach you. People just go. And now you can buy mantras on internet very easily with people who are not even experienced in chanting mantras, and that's part of the reason why we are in difficulty. So that's why Patanjali uses the word Anushtanam to follow a teacher who has traveled a journey. That's why Acharya Krishnamacharya says in the verse Dhyana Malika, Prathamam pashyed gurvacharanam tatascha shrunuyat tadukta tattvam tatastu kuryat mananam samyak tathota kuryat shraddha yuktaha. First, have the humility to find a teacher and follow instructions. This doesn't mean that you have to be passive. People in the real parampara will know that a true Acharya will not want the student to be passive. The true Acharya will want the student to be very active. Prathamam pashyed gurvacharanam. First, look at the feet of the teacher is two things. One, have humility. Don't think you know everything. Second, more important, take the teacher's experience, because the feet represents travel. Travel not literally, but metaphorically. As the teacher is considered a teacher because he or she is traveling from darkness to light. So look at their journey, get inspiration from their journey. This is part of the problem today, because many of us, we believe the teacher is perfect. That's part of the problem. The teacher was also one day dark and has sought light. That's why he or she is a teacher. Many people give an image of being a perfect guru. Avoid them, because they are giving an image, they are not giving reality. That's Patanjali's message here. So that's why look at the feet of the teacher. Then tatascha shrunuyat tadukta vachanam. Listen to the teachings. Don't think you know everything. Listen to what is being said. Tatastu kuryat mananam samyak. Then reflect about it, meditate on it. Reflect and meditate is very different from analysis. Analysis is a very pitta activity, judgment, analysis. I know everything. Pitta also is very strong in the ego. I know everything. Why should I listen to the teacher? Analysis is very pitta aggravating activity. Whereas reflection is a sattvic activity. When the lake is quiet, there is a reflection of the mountain on the lake. That is reflection. So reflect about what the teacher is saying. Means stay with the teaching. Again and again remember that. Tathota kuryat shraddha yukta. Then put it into practice. Linking with shraddha. That is what is called anushtanam. These four parts define what is called anushtanam. Find a teacher who is part of a parampara, so that the power of the parampara is behind you. It's not one teacher. It's the whole lineage of teachers that are behind supporting. Then listen to the instructions given. Don't go with a I know everything attitude. Go with an attitude of being an empty cup so that it can be filled. Then reflect on what you have heard, what you have received. Then put it into practice with faith, Shraddha Yuktaha, linking with faith. Faith in yourself, in your own abilities, not with fear. The opposite of faith is fear. Don't do practice with fear. Do practice with faith. Even the fear that I'm afraid of what will happen, I'm afraid of what's coming, I'm afraid of life, I'm afraid of suffering. Don't do with that expectation. Do it with faith. That is what is called Anushthana. When we do the Anushtana of the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs, how to adapt, how to put it into practice, that will be guided by the teacher for a long time. That's why the word is Anushtana, for a long time. Then Ashuddhikshaye, the toxins in us will reduce. Toxins in the form of kleshas, our mental, psychological toxins, things like fear, ego, aversion, desire, ignorance, all these things and their friends like anger, lust, delusion, greediness, jealousy, all these kind of things, they will all reduce. These are our toxins. Our toxins are not what is outside. It's very, very fascinating because we tend to always blame other people for our problems. The toxins are always inside. This is very, very common, especially in India. We like to blame other people. Like, for example, I have a lot of students and family members who are so sweet. They are diabetic. They are so sweet. Now, in India, you go to a friend or family member's house, they will always offer you some sweets, some coffee and sweets. So these people, they cannot say no. They are taking the coffee and sweet. Then they say, not my fault, sir. They gave me. What can I do? No, you don't have to take just because something is given. The same way Patanjali is saying to us, you can't just say, okay, it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. You have to take responsibility. Whether you say yes or no, it's your choice. And you have to be very clear with your choice. So all these kleshas are inside us, they are not outside. Objects are not the problem, people are not the problem, it is our attitude that is the problem. That's why Patanjali, very first chapter number 5, he says, Vrittayaha panchatayaha klishta aklishta. Our mind is giving us trouble, our mind is giving us the solution depending on how we use it. Depending on how we use it, our mind is creating problems or getting us rid of problems depending on how we use it. So the ashuddhi, the toxins in our body, mind and emotions will slowly reduce. Only when that reduces, jnana deeptihi, the light inside is going to reveal itself. For me, this is the most beautiful part of yoga's teachings. If you look at it, it's so fascinating. And Patanjali reminds us of our gift. Patanjali in this sutra is saying, Jnana Deepti, the light that is inside will glow. What it means is, nobody is giving us light. We have already been given light. From the time we are born till the time we are dying, we have that light. Whether we are using it or not, that is in our hands. Nobody outside, whether it's a priest or family member or guru or Acarya, is giving you that light. That time we are conceived, that light has been given to us by Paramatma. Especially in Vedic tradition, nobody has the right to give light or take away light, including oneself. That's why in Vedic tradition, suicide is not allowed, because you cannot take your life, because life was given as a gift by God. You cannot kill yourself. It means you are interfering with God's plan or karma. It's your gift from God. God has given you that. So the light is within you, whatever you want to call, whether it's God or something else, consciousness, you have been given this gift. That will shine, because until now it was not shining, it was covered, it was hidden. It's like sometimes you are given a gift, but then you put it somewhere and you forget that it is there. You forget that it is there. So last week or so, I was cleaning my cupboards in my house, and I found a set of 3 pens that I have not seen for the last 12 years. And it's very precious because these pens were given to me by my father. And I really think that because I didn't want to lose it, and it was a gift from my father, I kept it in one place where even I will not look. So that nobody will look, even I will not look. So it was hidden from everybody, including myself. So only when I cleaned the cupboard, I found these 3 wonderful pens. The same way, when God gave us this light, He put it in a place where nobody will look, our heart. We are looking everywhere else except our heart. And we have covered our heart with toxic clouds. That's why, like I clean my room, we have to clean this room. This pura. Pura means body. We have to clean this room. So the toxins are removed, then the light which is revealing is showing up. So that is why this is fascinating, because nobody outside is giving us clarity. This is very, very fascinating. That's another problem today, because many people follow blindly the gurus and says, Guru, you tell us what to do. You tell us what to do, we will do. Now, such a person is not really a guru if the guru starts advising about every aspect of our life. Guru, today can I go to work? Is it a good day? Is it auspicious day? Is the sun and the stars are aligning? The guru checks the calendar and says, okay, go to work today. Guru, can I marry this person? Guru, can I do this job? Guru, can I do this house? Guru, can I buy this house here? If we are dependent on the guru so much, we are not dependent on the light that is already given within us. This is irresponsibility, and as long as we follow such guru, we will become guru. There's a double meaning. Because the word guru not only is a teacher, guru also means dull or heavy. So, if you follow such acharyas, you will become guru. Whereas, you follow acharyas like Patanjali, like the acharyas coming in the sampradaya, like we have been fortunate enough with Acharya Krishnamacharya, Desikachar. They will remind us not to become dependent on them, but rather depend on our own clarity and what we need to do in the practice. The practice is only removing the toxic obstacles. That's why Ashuddhi Kshaye Jnana Deepti. And only when these two happen, Viveka Khyate, we slowly will start to have Viveka, the internal clarity. We become a magnet for Viveka, and with that we start living our life. And this is very fascinating, because when we start doing that, we will live our life. We will not live life according to how other people want us to live. That's disempowerment. Please think about it. If you look at all the species in the world, a rose will be a rose, a hibiscus will be a hibiscus, a lotus will be a lotus. A rose will not try to be like a lotus, or lotus will not try to be like a hibiscus. And even in the same plant, each lotus or each hibiscus will become its own nature. It will turn its direction, what it wants to become, where it wants to go. It won't always follow what somebody else is telling it to do. And the rose is not thinking, oh, if I don't become a rose, what will other people think? If I don't do this, what will other people think? That's what we human beings do. What will other people think? What will other people think? And we waste our whole life. And then when we die, we think, oh, what will other people think when we die? They don't even think about us. We are forgotten very easily. So that's why what Patanjali is saying here is, the best way to live life is through an empowered living, where you follow your dharma. Same teaching in Bhagavad Gita. Swadharme nidanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. You have to follow your swadharma, that is the higher path. Following a dharma of another is not the higher path, it's a dangerous path. Bhayavaha, it creates fear. It's a very fearful path. If I have to be like somebody, that's very scary. Very scary. Many people would ask me, oh, you're not like your father. Why don't you be like your father? I say, I'm not my father. Because my father's mother and father are different from my mother and father. How can I be my father? Secondly, I ask them, are you like your father? Then they shut up. So we cannot be like somebody else. We have to be like ourselves. That's why this concept is very important, because to become close to ourselves, we need an integrative approach of all the angas of yoga, not just parts. We need the Aṣṭāṅga-yoga, we don't need only parts. That's why it's a problem, because many people in the yoga field think that more asanas they do, the better yogis they are, the better they will be. They will become better gymnasts, but they are not necessarily better human beings. Because asana is one part of yoga, and the way we are doing in the modern era, it's not even yoga. And that's why we are suffering today in the yoga field. The yoga field needs its light to shine. And that's why, my friends, I hope that all of us will take Patanjali's invitation into the world of Ashtanga Yoga and practice it as a holistic practice, so that we may all connect to our lights and bring light to the field of yoga, which is very important now. This is the summary of the sutras. Yoganganushthanat ashodhikshaye jnanadipte avivekakhyate yama niyama asana pranayama pratyahara dharana dhyana samadhaya ashtau angani. Namaste, my dear friends.